This lecture is part 2 of 2 addressing helping the decision process in adaptive management. The first part of this lecture was focused on modeling and research. The second part of this lecture will focus on adaptive management as a learning tool. Learning is a critical step in adaptive management and in making environmental management decisions. Often, our environmental decisions and policies go unevaluated. It has been said that if we do not learn from our mistakes, we are doomed to repeat them. This lecture will focus on adaptive management as a learning tool. Learning in adaptive management comes about in a variety of ways. Monitoring systems are a key part of this learning, as each new set of data tells us more about the system we are studying and the effectiveness or impacts of management actions. Modeling and research results tell us similar things but differently. These provide not only predictions about future changes in our study subject, but also give us feedback on other changes that are external or not part of the management actions. Multiple factors affect the speed of learning when employing models or targeted research. Model structure and parameter values will influence how long the modeling or research takes to establish and complete. Questions that may arise include, is the model the right one, and is it designed properly? You will need to determine if the estimates of parameters are precise and unbiased, and how much the amount of noise in the system will influence the model or research design and build those into the process. For example, if you plan to study forest stand structure and a hurricane or windstorm snaps substantial canopy, how can you accommodate this in the model or design? You will also need to consider partial observability, that is, you are unable to see the entire system or its response, if any, to the management action. Strictly defined, monitoring is the systematic and usually repetitive collection of information, typically used to track the status of a variable or system. Adaptive management uses monitoring to track and evaluate many different variables or parameters, and generally includes 3 components: implementation or compliance monitoring, effectiveness monitoring, and targeted studies. Monitoring and targeted studies should be designed in an adaptive management context if they are to assist decision-making. Under this model, management moves forward in a scientifically based way that involves monitoring, conducting targeted studies, and applying management activities as experimental treatments. The results feed back into decision-making, reducing uncertainty and improving the effectiveness of the program through time. Under adaptive management, managers use the best available information to make decisions, but should always be questioning and seeking opportunities to learn how best to accomplish the goals of the plan. We can describe designing a monitoring program as a 9-step process. Step 1. Identify goals and objectives of the monitoring program. Step 2. Identify the scope of monitoring program. Step 3. Compile information relevant to the monitoring program design. Step 4. Strategically divide the system and prioritize for the monitoring program development. Step 5. Develop simple management-oriented conceptual models. Step 6. Identify monitoring recommendations and critical uncertainties. Step 7. Determine strategies for implementing monitoring. Step 8. Develop data quality assurance, data management, analysis, and reporting strategies. Step 9. Complete the adaptive management loop by ensuring there is an effective feedback to decision-making. In practical application, the steps in this process may overlap. At each step, it is likely that information or insights will surface that can inform and improve the products of earlier steps. In addition, steps 1 through 5 could be coordinated and developed simultaneously with the early steps in adaptive management, using the stakeholder group to step down adaptive management goals and objectives into monitoring goals and objectives, for example. The program should clearly document its decisions and seek input and review from scientists, managers, and stakeholders throughout the process. Consider that the cost of monitoring is not just the expense of gathering data, but also the opportunity cost of not having the right data and therefore making the wrong decision. Developing high-quality monitoring programs requires creativity as well as sufficient information on which to build a sound foundation. As mentioned earlier, it is highly recommended that the group keep detailed records of important decisions and the rationale behind them. Because science benefits from peer review and an open and unbiased process, review should be sought early and regularly, and should include some scientists completely independent of the local program. For those seeking additional assistance, some excellent general references for designing monitoring in an adaptive management context have been published. See the list of further readings identified here. One final note on monitoring and adaptive management is that there are many entities out there conducting monitoring on your study subject. From counties monitoring daily trash volume at landfills to routine water quality sampling by states, there are many opportunities to gain solid data upon which to base decisions that do not require you to develop your own monitoring program. Discovering these existing resources and coordinating with these entities will often result in substantial savings in cost and effort for your stakeholder group. Always do your homework when it comes to finding out what is going on at the local, area, and regional scales before launching into an expensive or time-consuming monitoring effort. Just as there is learning in adaptive management, there is unlearning. We in our organizations must be able to unlearn or let go of preconceived assumptions as we grapple with complexity and uncertainty. Whether adaptive management meets institutional expectations depends upon committed leadership, individual and institutional flexibility, willingness to learn, and willingness to change. The dialogue process built into adaptive management brings understandings closer, but when consensus is not reached, the process still confers legitimacy on decisions, strategies, and actions. Decisions gain support because they are perceived to be legitimate. However, whether or not actors in a relationship support a decision also depends on relational capital determined by, among others, trust and commitment. In summary, the rate of learning from the additional data gathered through modeling or targeted research will depend heavily on the uncertainty within the model or research design. The goal of learning within adaptive management is to improve predictions across the landscape. The true cost of monitoring is not only the expense of collecting the data, but also the expected opportunity cost of making a poor decision. The following reference was used in developing this lecture presentation.